If your loved one was bitten by a zombie and the only way to keep them alive was to feed them freshly cut human meat, what kind of taco seasoning would you use? A devastating new epidemic is sweeping across the globe. An ecopathogen that takes root inside humans, transforming them into plant-infested zombies. Nobody knows how it started. Social media influencers have begun calling these eco-zombies the reclaimed. Something, Mother Nature's vengeance against humanity's destruction of the planet. I don't know. Earth seems to be doing pretty alright to me. Mother Nature's gonna be real sorry when Chicxulub's big bro's hurtling towards the Earth after she just turned Harry Stamper into a bush. When Ethan makes a catastrophic noob mistake during the zombie apocalypse and gets bitten, his girlfriend Emma becomes determined to do whatever it takes to keep him alive. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the plant zombies in Die Alone. This movie's told from Ethan's perspective, which is problematic because he's already dead. He's got that fungal-induced amnesia. His memories are so distorted that he can barely remember what he had for breakfast. Let's just say that it's confusing, chaotic, disorganized, and nothing makes sense until the big twist at the end reveals that he's already been reclaimed. He just doesn't know it yet. For your viewing pleasure and so our strategies actually make sense, I'm gonna break down the events in the order that they actually happened. Alright, let's navigate this movie's complex moral dilemmas with pragmatic, self-serving schemes. We start by following Ethan as he checks in on his girlfriend Emma, a nurse at the local hospital. It's become clear that this epidemic is apocalyptic. Patients keep getting sicker, nobody's recovering, and now the infected have started attacking and devouring the living, transmitting the infection via bodily fluids. To make matters worse, they can't be killed by simply bleeding out from a bullet or knife wound. The only way to stop them is through the complete destruction of the corpse. Knowing this, Ethan and Emma decide to get out of town. Their plan? Drive to a secluded cabin near Candle Lake, where they can hold up, have a pint, and wait for the whole eco-apocalypse to blow over, if they can make it there alive. They weren't exactly early to evacuate. In fact, they're pretty late. The gas station they arrive at is hard closed and most likely bone dry. Being as they're driving on empty, Ethan jumps out and bangs his pistol on the door trying to get some service, while Emma casually hangs her head down onto the roof of the car. Nerds, you know I'm all about kitting up with the latest and greatest tools that I can possibly get my hands on. And while it's fun to think about what I might use to fend off the next alien invasion and/or werewolf apocalypse, it's easy to forget about upgrading the things that we use every day, like your internet browser. More people than ever rely on their browsers for work, school, and entertainment. I know I do. So why settle for anything less than a modern user experience? I'm talking about Opera. Opera 1R2 is the latest evolution of the Opera browser, offering users enhanced video and audio playback and a wide range of customizable features. The player function allows you to seamlessly control music from streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Deezer, Tidal, and SoundCloud, all without disrupting your work or forcing you to switch tabs. And you can even detach the player and move it wherever you want, including over things outside the browser window itself. Now, for all you multitaskers out there, Opera's split screen feature allows you to display two tabs side by side within the same window, which is especially useful for comparing documents or managing live streams. And if you're someone like me who has about 100 tabs open at any given time, their robust tab features will make it easier than ever for you to stay organized. Opera's tab traces automatically underline recently visited tabs, allowing you to easily see where you've come from with nothing but a quick glance. And with their tab islands, all open tabs will be intuitively placed into context-based groups that you can expand or collapse depending on the task at hand. Need to consult a machine god on something? The ARIA command line lets you ask all your burning questions within whatever tab you're already working in. All you have to do is hit Control+/ on Windows or Command+/ on Mac, and you'll be free to beseech the Omnissiah for the gift of information. Plus, it even comes with both AI image recognition and image generation, just in case you want to turn those daydreams into something shareable. For example, I used Arya to create this image of an alien werewolf being struck by a silver-tipped warhead fired from an FGM-148 Javelin-guided missile system. And as for customization, Opera lets you pick from preset themes like Classic, Aurora, and Midsummer, all of which you can easily alter with a variety of animated backgrounds, UI colors, sound effects, and more to create your ideal environment for work, play, or whatever. So if all that sounds good to you, you can find the link to download down in the description. Thanks again to Opera for sponsoring this video. With zombies running around eating people, looters killing each other over flat screens, I'm gonna take a guess and say that whoever's inside ain't coming out. They're more likely to send a load of buckshot through the door than pump gas into your Buick. Did you really expect a gas jockey to pop on over after you rang the bell? Nobody's taking any chances, much less with a desperate man waving a pistol around. Why do you even want to go inside anyway? Either the pump works, or it doesn't. Banging on windows or breaking into a dark convenience store is incredibly dangerous. The Funyuns are not worth it, bro. As for Emma, for the same reason as above, putting her head down is a surprisingly casual move. You know there's dangerous threats everywhere, and you intentionally zeroed out your situational awareness? Unsurprisingly, Aziz sneaks up right behind her without her noticing. Thankfully, Ethan catches it in the reflection of the window, 180s, and somehow trigger jerks around right into the geezer's head with his eyes closed. He rushes over to embrace Emma, with the zombie laying right at their feet, while they're reciting their wedding vows and saying, "I love you more. No, I love you more." The zombie does the unexpected. It rises from the dead, grabs Ethan's arm, and manages to chew off a big meaty chunk before Emma can give him another hole to breathe out of. Ethan's memory picks up later that night. For some idiotic reason, the man with the giant moldy bite wound on his arm is the one driving. Emma knows Ethan's brain is rapidly deteriorating, causing confusion, amnesia, and sleep attacks. Yet, she's apparently chill with the prospect of being completely helpless when Ethan inevitably veers off the road to avoid a unicorn, or because he was fast asleep, daydreaming about Mother Nature's bosom. After he nods off for the third time, Emma tells Ethan that she can drive, to which he responds, "Nah, I'm good." It turns out that Ethan was most certainly not good. The movie doesn't show what happened right after the crash. Instead, it cuts to Ethan waking up in a different vehicle decades later. Notice the different seatbelt mechanism. Again, this is the unreliable perspective of a confused man stitching two distinctly separate memories together. Based on what we know about the infection timeline and Ethan's escalating symptoms, he was getting hungry. While the story doesn't specify what happened, my guess is that after the head-on collision, Ethan blacked out and went feral on the other vehicle's occupants when they tried to help. Emma would have witnessed Ethan turning them into a 4-course meal, and then, once he'd had his fill of man-meat, snapping out of the fungal trance and regaining his humanity, looking up at Emma, confused and horrified, covered in their blood and not knowing what he just did. It's the same look that she saw back at the gas station with the old man zombie. He attacked Ethan, swallowed his flesh, and for a brief moment, just before she sent him to plant heaven, he seemed to regain lucidity, looking confused, scared, and regretful. That's when it would have dawned on her. The infected exhibit escalating symptoms that culminate in a violent feeding frenzy, but once they consume fresh human flesh, the symptoms temporarily reverse, and they become themselves again. Without fresh human feet, though, the infected slowly deteriorate, becoming more and more plant-like until they're full-on undead tree skeletons. This is the moment Emma understood what Ethan was now, and what she needed to do to keep him alive. She has to keep feeding Ethan fresh human flesh every single day, or it's VeggieTales. With how afraid everyone is of each other, procuring human meat's gonna be difficult. And it's gonna be a whole lot more difficult with that disgusting green bite wound on Ethan's arm. That's where she gets the bright idea to create a fake arm cast. After all, how would Ethan have gotten bitten on the arm if he had a cast on for his broken arm? right? All Ethan would have to do is act normal and let Emma do all the talking. Being a nurse, Emma knew how to whip up a convincing cast with basic supplies that she could scavenge around town. It wouldn't be too hard. Just some gauze, glue, water, and a marker to add a nice big heart from his sweetheart to sell the look. The next memory picks up with Ethan and Emma attacking Farmer Frank Griot's family. Who knows how many people she's fed to Ethan at this point? Probably a lot, considering Ethan can't go a day without feeding. All we know is Emma's going door to door, and Kai's beautiful family is next on her list. Ethan and Emma walk right up, acting all innocent. "Please, sir, we'll do anything for a morsel of bread. That is, if you can spare one." Kai tells them that if they try anything, his daughter will smoke them both. He then instructs them to take their clothes off and turn around so he can check for bites. The fake cast does its job. Kai gives them the all clear and invites them in for supper. I somewhat get Emma's approach here. She doesn't have a rifle nor the skills to use one. She has a pistol but also lacks the skills to draw on somebody like Kai. To make matters worse, she's also out of time. Ethan needs fresh human flesh within an hour or two, so she can't just wait outside the house to blast Kai point blank as he walks out the front door holding his morning cup of joe. If both of them can pass the initial bite check and get close, they have a decent chance of taking Kai out, at which point his wife and daughter would be easy pickings. However, if Emma had some rope or tape, she could just pistol whip Ethan over the back of the head and tie him up behind a tree to keep his symptoms from blowing her cover while she subdued Kai's family. Cluing Ethan in on her plan isn't really an option. He's perpetually confused, amnesiac, and completely unaware that he was even infected. He wouldn't understand, he'd forget why it was happening, and/or he'd fight back. Better to knock him out, handle business herself, and come back with some of Kai's special family jerky. As for Kai's mistakes, oh man, where to start? First mistake, handing his pistol to his young daughter, who realistically wouldn't have been able to hit anything with a 9mm using that grip from that distance, and definitely not while under potential return fire from Emma. She'd close her eyes, yank the trigger, the gun would stovepipe instantly, flying out of her hands from the recoil. She'd scream, duck, and run while Emma opened fire. That pistol should have been in Kai's holster where it actually could have been used effectively. God forbid a group of armed looters showed up instead of Ethan and Emma. Would have been all over. Bare minimum, Kai should have gone for his rifle first thing. Second mistake, Kai should have checked them both more thoroughly. Even though he's an isolated farmer, it's clear from later events that he knows the symptoms of infection and should have been highly suspicious of anyone trying to dodge a full-body check. Knowing how easy it is to DIY a convincing cast and how desperate the infected and their loved ones can be, it's hard to believe that he didn't inspect it further or just take it off entirely. But what about my broken arm? Look, buddy, I'm not taking any chances. You're stripping down everything right here in the open. Don't like it? I'll be happy to dig a couple graves out back. While they're standing there exposed at gunpoint, I'd have my wife search their belongings, check every pocket, every bag, take any weapons. I want to know exactly what they've got on them. Then I'd separate them and run through some Rick Grimes level questioning. The beauty of amnesia and confusion being key symptoms is that you don't have to catch them in a lie. They don't even know what to lie about. If they can't tell me exactly what they've been doing for the past few months, or even what they had for breakfast, they're fertilizing the garden. Or maybe not. We still don't know how this pathogen jumped to humans. Probably best to keep the infected away from our food sources. If there's still doubt, chain them up in the shed overnight, based on what's commonly understood about eco-zombie progression. If they're infected, it'll be painfully obvious by morning. In fact, I'd bet if you chained them up next to each other and told Emma that you would be back in the morning, she would crack, because she knows that Ethan will turn and probably try to eat her face off before dawn. But Kai? Nope, just a cursory ocular pat-down. No weapon check, and straight up invites them inside with his family. Kai even picks up on Ethan's weird behavior, specifically his inability to speak for himself. That alone should have set off alarm bells. Then Kai offers Ethan a glass of water. which Ethan refuses. Refuses water. In an apocalypse where lack of thirst is a well-known symptom of infection. That is a massive red flag. You're telling me you've been hiking around in the sun, you're starving, but you're not thirsty. In an apocalypse where lack of thirst is literally plastered on every caution sign, you drink the water even if you're not thirsty. Maybe they're suspicious of Kai putting something in their water, but from Kai's POV, this is a major red flag coming from a couple that was just begging for food minutes ago. What does Kai do with this glaring red flag? Promptly ignores it and invites them to the table for dinner, where a sharpened knife was left right within reach. Seriously? You or your wife can cut the tomatoes. You don't know these people, so why are you putting a weapon right in front of them? Inevitably, Ethan's symptoms begin to worsen. He starts suspiciously nodding off during grace. Emma tries to cover him, saying that they need to wash up in the bathroom real quick. But when only Emma returns, Kai draws his Glock on her and tells his wife and daughter to go outside while he handles business. Sarah tries to protest, thinking that Kai's being unreasonable, but he insists. The situation hasn't gone south yet, but I want to point out Kai's mistakes here. No way would I have let Ethan and Emma wander off to another part of the house if I suspected that they were infected. And when only Emma came back, there is no chance that I'd sit there with my back to wherever Ethan was. I also definitely would not let my wife and daughter out of my sight with Ethan on the verge of turning into a zombie somewhere in the house. As soon as Ethan suspiciously started nodding off at the table, Kai should have gotten up, drawn his gun on the both of them, and grabbed the tomato knife. He should have told them that he suspected that they were infected, but if they left and never came back, he wouldn't kill them. Then he should have escorted them outside while Sarah and Caroline waited in the other room. Once outside, Kai should have forced Ethan to remove the cast to confirm his suspicions. The wound would have made it obvious. At that point, Kai should have shot them both dead and burned their corpses to completely destroy any zombie fungal remnants. What, you thought I would have actually let them go? No, they're way too dangerous. Emma's an even more serious threat that just proved that she could never be trusted with knowledge of their family and whereabouts, especially after that insidious plot to feed my family to a zombie. I just wanted them to think that there was a chance so I didn't have to blow their brains out all over my dinner table. It would take hours to clean. I'm hungry, and Sarah's scrumptious hot meal would go cold. Instead of going outside as Kai instructed, his wife takes his daughter to go check on Ethan.
Are you okay, dear?
Why not try closing the door? He was far enough away that you had a couple seconds after he turned around with those opaque blue eyes. Ultimately, Sarah should have known better than to check on him in the first place. At this stage in the apocalypse, she should understand the signs of infection and imminent zombification. If she didn't, Kai should have given her a 101 after Ethan and Emma showed up so that she fully understood who was a danger and why. None of this, but Kai, they're just an innocent young couple struggling to survive. Be reasonable. It's the apocalypse. People turn into zombies. What's that? Ethan's nodding off? Refusing water? Yep. Okay, Kai, do your thing. We'll be outside. Even if you're blissfully ignorant, as Sarah seemed to be, when Frank Rio draws a pistol and tells you to take a walk, you take a walk. If she was determined to check on Ethan despite Kai's warnings and the obvious danger, she should not have taken her daughter with her, and she should have been strapped up. Or at least Caroline should have been. Speaking of which, what happened to Little Miss Never Misses pistol? You didn't think that that would be an important item to bring when checking on a possibly infected stranger in your home? No? Okay. Now you're both getting eaten by a zombie. Their screams throw Kai off for a moment, just long enough for Emma to seize the tomato knife and stab him deep, causing Kai to drop his gun. But why? It wasn't even the arm that she stabbed. There is no reason why his hand should have turned into a limp fish like that. You death grip that pistol until you resolve the situation, or someone pulls it from your cold, dead hands. He's got those over-the-hill farmer hands, for Christ's sake. Don't give me that the shock of being stabbed BS. It's pretty common for soldiers to take gunshot wounds and not even realize it due to the adrenaline. Well, I'm sure with his massive strength and size advantage, he'll be able to finish her off, barring Kai making yet yet another disastrous mistake. Kai smashes her face into the pasta bowl, leaving her with that deep cheek scar. Then he yanks her back and throws her to the ground, right where his gun landed. This right here is the opposite of clutching. Once Kai caught the knife and slammed Emma's face into the bowl, it should go without saying that the absolute last thing that he should have done was throw her to the ground next to his pistol. Kai had the clear physical advantage. He should have kept bashing her head into the bowl until the squeaky toy broke, choked her until her legs stopped kicking, or pulled the knife out of his shoulder and carved a smiley face into her neck. Kai habitually let go of control at every turn. He let Ethan go. He let his wife and daughter out of his sight. He let his pistol go. And he let Emma out of his grasp. Emma's plan only worked because Kai and his family were stupid. With Ethan holed up in the bathroom feeding on Sarah and Caroline, Emma figures she might as well make this place home. Every day, she hunts for survivors, careful to wound rather than kill, then drags them back to the barn, where she's built her own makeshift medical bay. Using her nursing skills, she keeps them alive, stable, and sedated, carving off small pieces for Ethan's daily dose of human soup. As long as they're breathing, the meat stays fresh, and Ethan doesn't need much, just a fistful to stay himself. Killing outright or letting him tear through victims would just be wasteful, not exactly a sustainable, eco-friendly operation. And with humans rapidly becoming an endangered species, waste is not an option. She keeps the barn locked up so that Ethan or any snooping survivors don't uncover her operation. This worked well for a decade or so. Ethan was himself most of the day, and they were able to keep their relationship alive. Life was good for a while. Though as the years went by, it became clear that the infection, the eating of human meat, was like a fountain of youth for Ethan, at least for his body. It was like he never aged a day. Not for Emma, though. She became older and older and older. Then one day, Ethan stopped recognizing Emma. In Ethan's confused, amnesiac head, this is just some lady helping him. The only thing he clearly remembers is that he needs to find Emma, which is why nearly every day he leaves to go to the Candle Lake cabin in search of her. Despite this, Emma holds on, knowing that without him, she would lose the only thing that she had left in this world. It's actually pretty sad, not gonna lie. This brings us to Ethan's next memory. Waking up in a car in the middle of a field. His brain falsely stitches this to his last memory of crashing during that night drive to Candle Lake with Emma. It's clear that he's been staying at Kai's house with May, and once again took her car out in search of Emma, unaware that he's infected. He dozed off behind the wheel and drove off the road. Considering this has most likely happened many times so far, I have to wonder why Emma hasn't taken more precautions. Something as simple as hiding her car keys could have saved her a lot of trouble. Sure, it wouldn't stop Ethan from trying to make the trip on foot, but at least he wouldn't be burning through scarce gas, draining battery power, or wrecking the car every time he dozed off behind the wheel, potentially getting himself killed. Not to mention, running vehicles are a rare commodity, crucial for hauling the humans Emma hunts back to the barn. Without one, she can't transport fresh victims, which means she runs out of human meat for Ethan. And when that happens, he will slip past the point of no return, full zombification. You'd think that given what's at stake, she'd be a little bit more protective of her most valuable asset. Hiding the keys seems like the bare minimum. Ethan begins searching the nearby town looking for Emma, where he spots a truck driving around with an armed man riding on the back. He runs out and waves it down, claiming that he's lost. He just woke up and doesn't know where he is. The man on the back, realizing the telltale signs of infection, racks the bolt and opens fire. He's suppressed by Emma, firing from a nearby building's window while Ethan ducks behind a wall. As we can see from this shot, her angle is pretty poor. It's obscured by a tree, and she's only using a pistol. Despite all of this, the truck bro's gun should have already had a round in the chamber. Rookie mistake. He also should have kept things friendly at first. Maybe waved Ethan over like he was offering help. Then, once Ethan was out in the open, too far from cover to make a run for it, that's when he should have taken the shot. While Ethan's cowering in the fetal position, Emma walks up and pistol whips the gunman unconscious. Then, instead of securing his weapon, she leaves his knife on his chest rig and AR within arm's reach while she checks on the other guy. I know it's been a while since the whole Kai thing, but that is exactly the mistake that he made before you killed him. Never leave a weapon next to someone who's intent on killing you, no matter how unconscious they seem. The driver sustained a fatal wound, which is disappointing since the meat won't be fresh enough for Ethan's picky tastes. Emma then enlists Ethan's help to bag the bodies and load them into the truck bed, but he passes out almost immediately, so she just tosses him back there too. It's surprising she didn't bother tying up the live one. If he woke up, he could have easily used his chest knife to slit Ethan's throat and ambushed her the moment the truck stopped and she stepped out. Also, she never took the gunman's AR, a strange choice considering the constant threat of other humans and how much more effective it would be for hunting. You'd think that she'd want every advantage that she could get. Emma drives the truck back home, puts the tuckered out Ethan to bed, and when he regains consciousness the following morning, Emma hands him her gun and tells him to shoot her. Naturally, Ethan doesn't, because he's a nice guy, and that's lucky for his hand, because her little red switch would have caused the pistol to self-detonate, starfishing his hand like 4-Leaf after catching that grenade in Tropic Thunder. Ignoring the sheer impossibility of Emma safely rigging her own pistol to explode, if she somehow pulled it off, one wrong bump, a misaligned wire, or an accidental switch flip, and boom, her hand turns into Campbell's Chunky. On top of that, since she keeps the switch activated at all times, she would have to remember to deactivate it every single time she draws on someone in order to not blow herself up. Perfect for those extremely stressful, time-sensitive situations where you lose fine motor skills and tend to forget details. Think about how many times you've accidentally left the safety on when shooting. Bye-bye hand. And if someone steals your gun, you're probably already dead because they killed you with their own. Not to mention, what's the point of explaining this? He's just gonna forget anyway. Ethan follows her outside while she snags a possum she had trapped while a skeletonized zombie moans from the nearby shed, which she named Myrtle. I get it's lonely in the apocalypse, but have you considered a dog? She then leads Ethan back inside and locks up 5 deadbolts on the front door, which has a window right next to it. A window anyone could shatter, reach through, and unlock the door in seconds. Like clockwork, Ethan gets increasingly determined to leave in order to search for Emma at the Candle Lake cabin. At night, he snags the keys that were negligently left out, steals her truck, and heads out. He barely fights off the sleep attacks long enough to make it to the cabin. Smashing out the window, he reaches in, unlocks the door, and steps inside. From the shadows, a woman named Jolene emerges, gun raised while a little boy hides behind a nearby couch. Ethan says he's not looking for trouble, just his girlfriend. Before she can properly assess him, there's a rustling, moaning noise coming towards the door. She rushes past Ethan to try and pin the door shut just as the monstrosity gets halfway in the door. Ethan jumps in, and together they shove the zombie back outside and lock the door, after which Jolene takes a knee to let out a big sigh of relief, right in front of the giant open window in the flimsy door. The same door that, just seconds ago, had a zombie on the other side. Lady, step away from the door. Ethan picks up the gun Jolene dropped and tries to shoot it. The gun just goes click. Instead of attempting a tap rack bang, he just drops it and grabs the conveniently placed hammer lying on the ground, which he uses to clobber the zombie's head in. How many times do people have to put their backs to windows before they learn? Jolene should have had Ethan hold the door shut while they used the nearby furniture to barricade it. The door's clearly nowhere near strong enough to keep that giant tree zombie from forcing its way in. Matter of fact, she should have done this first thing when she got here. Once the dust settles, Jolene finally has an opportunity to do a proper assessment of Ethan, which she doesn't do. Instead, she asks him to tell her a story about Emma before she falls asleep. Jolene has survived in this apocalypse for a long time, Like everybody else, she should know the signs and symptoms of infection and how to vet strangers properly. She should be asking questions, looking for inconsistencies, and not just taking vague answers at face value. A broken bone only needs to be in a cast for a couple months. So what are the odds that Ethan just happens to still be wearing one right now? That alone should have raised serious suspicion. When exactly was this accident? What happened to the other occupants? Where did Emma get the supplies to make the cast? A hospital? If so, were there more medical supplies there? If there was a recently stocked hospital or supply cache nearby, that is valuable information. These are basic survival questions Jolene should be asking in addition to what he's been doing for the past months. If he can't clearly answer any of those questions with specificity and detail, which he won't be able to due to his fungal-induced amnesia and confusion, then he needs to be killed with that hammer.
You'd better have this.
More importantly, the cast is a perfect way to hide a bite wound. Infection spreads primarily through bites, yet, just like Kai's family, Jolene never even thinks to check. It's the most obvious sign of infection, and checking for bites is the most basic precaution anyone should take. Another well-known symptom? Lack of thirst. Even if she doesn't have any water, she should still offer him some to see if he refuses. If he's truly human and uninfected, he would be dehydrated and would gladly take it. If he refuses, I'll throw another red flag in for gigs. Jolene's been staying at this cabin for weeks, so she's had plenty of time to notice the framed picture of Ethan and Emma. Given how long it's been since the outbreak and the ferocity of the epidemic, nobody's printing and framing photos. That means the picture's been here for decades. If Ethan still looks exactly the same age as he does in that photo, which he does, and if he says that he was with Emma driving to this cabin at outbreak, which he will, both of those things are impossible. Meaning? While they watch the Oatly zombies skulking around outside, Jolene explains that because they're more plant than human, guns will only temporarily put them down, even with headshots. Realistically, if they were more plant than human, they'd be as stationary as a plant too. If they're more human than plant, then they must have organs, muscles, circulatory systems, and brains that could be destroyed conventionally. If these soy boys are truly walking the earth because there's no more room in plant hell, then we have a problem, as Jolene indicated. See, bullets rely on cavitation, expansion, tumbling, and fragmentation to destroy tissue, vital organs, and cause significant blood loss. If shooting these things is akin to shooting a tree, none of this is gonna happen. The bullet will dent or punch a hole in them, but that's about it. To effectively destroy these plant-based zombies, you're gonna need to pillage a landscaping company for weapons. Chainsaws, pole saws, axes, etc. They're essentially decomposing plant matter, probably all dried out too. De-limbing and reducing them to mulch, or setting them on fire with a torch would probably be the most effective options. All you need is a long stick, rag, oil, and a lighter, all of which would be abundant. I honestly don't get how everyone's having a hard time with these broccoli heads. They're stupid, slow, walking trees, not Terminators. As typical, Ethan starts to get very sleepy, and you know what that means. Panicked, he runs outside where there's a woman kneeling over Sam. Judging by the munching sounds, I don't think little bro made it. Just like Ethan, after she had her fill, her humanity came rushing back in. Intensely confused as to why she's trying to eat a boy with half her face missing, as one would be, she runs up to Ethan screaming, or at least trying to. Thank God, that was gross. Emma strolls in and doses everybody again. Again, set them on fire. Why are you wasting ammo on these vegetables who will just get back up in 5 minutes? Burn them to ashes. Ethan callously scoffs at May, asking her if it was necessary to shoot them all again. Let me remind you, He's a confused individual that doesn't really understand more than crazy zombie chick was all up in my face. With that in mind, let's answer his question. Was finishing off a jawless woman who was feasting on a boy before screaming in your face, who had survived a direct headshot from 30 seconds ago, necessary? Yeah. Is it necessary for you to question everyone who saves your life? Was it necessary for you to steal my truck? Because Ethan literally left the truck running, it's now dead, and they have to bike ride all the way back home. Great job. Not like running vehicles are valuable and useful or anything. Not like it'd have taken 2 seconds to shut it off. Really, this is Emma's fault for not hiding the keys. When they return, Emma spots signs of forced entry on the front door. She draws her gun and walks to the side of the house where there's loud sounds of someone rummaging. Sure enough, she finds a supposed looter. She holds him at gunpoint while Ethan pats him down to check for weapons. He says his name is Tom, and he's just a lone man struggling to survive in this harsh apocalyptic world. His story's convincing enough for Emma to let him live, for now at least. Unbeknownst to Emma, Tom isn't who he claims. He's not just a lone looter. He and his 2 well-armed buddies are here searching for his wife, Fanny, who disappeared 10 days ago. She was foraging in the area and mentioned to him that there was a house with power. This house. That was the last time that he saw her. Tom intends to find out what happened, and whether Emma and Ethan are responsible. Your first mistake was splitting up. Why was your wife foraging in this area alone? You'd all be far more effective and safe hunting and looting together. Your second mistake was trying to barge in without doing some recon first. If you had staked out the place for days, you would know who was living there, how many people, how well armed, when they come and go, and anything odd about their routines. Then, when Emma left, one of you could safely investigate the place while another kept watch and a third waited outside, ready to receive hand signals from the lookout indicating Emma's return. Inside, they would have found Fanny's belongings, along with a stash of items from many other deceased people. Then, they could have staged an ambush and swiftly gunned her and Ethan down when they returned from the Candle Lake cabin. Instead, Tom got caught on the wrong end of the barrel. Emma tells him that if he helps with chores, she'll give him a meal at dinner time. Her plan is to drug him later so that she can strap him to another gurney in her barn. I have to say, this is pretty reckless on her part. She's more than capable of putting a round in his leg, clubbing him in the head, and then stabilizing him. She's been doing this for decades. She knows exactly how to do it. It's riskier than drugging him, sure, but it's also risky to allow a man like this to freely roam around her property without supervision. And for good reason. With Emma gone, while the 2 of them are chopping wood, Tom should be questioning Ethan, which, again, would make it readily apparent that he's infected and Emma is up to no good. Tom steps behind a nearby truck under the pretense of taking a leak, but instead pockets a pistol that he had stashed there earlier. Wait. You're telling me this dude hid a pistol under a random truck just in case he got disarmed by the homeowner? So his brilliant plan was to get caught, disarmed, gain her trust, then retrieve the pistol later to hold her hostage and investigate whether she was responsible for Fanny's disappearance?
What are you, stupid?
That is beyond risky and stupid. This is 100% a shoot first, ask questions later situation. Right as Tom discreetly tucks the pistol into his waistband, Emma walks out with a pitcher of lemonade for them both. Ethan suspiciously declines, but Tom doesn't seem to notice. Instead, he gulps down what is almost certainly a sedative. If I were him, there is no way that I would take a sip until both Emma and Ethan drank a full glass from the same pitcher first. Shortly after, they all head inside for dinner. Emma serves up some of her famous Candle Lake Campbell's Chunky, which Tom sucks down without hesitation as well, which is baffling when his plan is to hold her at gunpoint minutes later, and point-blank accuse her of killing his wife. Bro, why would you drink the drink and eat the food of the person who you expect murdered your wife. Naturally, the drugs kick in before Tom can administer justice. As he lies unconscious on the floor, Emma carelessly leaves her pistol next to the guy who just tried to kill her and heads upstairs for a larger syringe of stronger sedatives. But why dose him again after he's already unconscious? And if it was that urgent, why wasn't the syringe in her pocket in the first place? Tom's crew arrives, sneaking in through the unlocked front door. Emma, what are you doing? You installed 5 deadbolts and didn't use a single one. If you had, you wouldn't be in a headlock right now. One of the guys notices the syringe Emma dropped. She claims that it's insulin. Except insulin isn't red, and most people are not thinking about injecting themselves while an unconscious man and a pistol lie on the living room floor. Who was she planning to jab? Tom? They know he's not diabetic. Ethan? Simple question. Are you diabetic? No? Then Emma, how about you tell us what's really in the syringe? Or we stick you with it and find out for ourselves. In typical bad guy fashion, one of them picks up Emma's pistol and slings his rifle, because naturally, in close quarters combat, you would trade your reliable, superior weapon for an unknown pistol with questionable modifications. That gun could be dry, filled with dirt, loaded with the wrong ammo, missing a round in the chamber, or full of faulty parts. There are a dozen ways that it could click when you need it to bang. Tom says, we're gonna search this whole house, find proof that Franny was here, and then we're gonna kill you. Why drag it out? Just kill her. You don't need her. Or Ethan. He already gave himself away by yelling for her to run when they ambushed her. The syringe is a giant red flag. She's clearly hiding something. So what's the holdup? Instead, Tom enlists Ethan, the guy who literally just tried to help Emma, to assist him in searching the house. Meanwhile, one of the 2 bad guys holding Emma hostage decides to check out her barn alone, convinced that there is something important out there. What could possibly be in that barn that cannot wait until Tom gets back? You're just further splitting up your forces, giving Emma a chance against the single guy left guarding her. While he's out playing detective in the barn, Ethan and Tom are tearing apart Emma's bedroom. Eventually, Tom finds a bag full of IDs, wallets, and personal belongings that clearly are not Emma's. Among them, his wife Franny's necklace. And now the obvious question: why didn't Emma destroy all this evidence? Burn it, bury it, anything. But no, she had to keep it. Because she liked it. She wasn't just a survivor doing what she had to do, she was a full-blown sociopath, collecting trophies like the Creep and Creep. I bet she has tapes of her victims suffering on the gurney somewhere too. Now that you guys know what happened to Franny, you should kill them. Kill them now. But no, instead they just berate her, leaving a known sociopathic murderer alive for absolutely no reason. While they're inside, busy not killing Emma and Ethan, their buddy outside investigating the barn finds a chained padlocked door. Grabbing a nearby axe, he breaks it open and discovers what's really going on here. Emma's operating a hospital, performing emergency life-saving services to those lucky enough to find themselves in her care. The guy bolts outside, screaming, "It's her!" In his rush, he trips a hidden explosive trap, triggering a blast that kills him and the AK-wielding friend who had gone to check on him. Yeah, it's hard to say that they wouldn't have tripped the explosive under different circumstances. Maybe if they'd waited until morning, it would have been easier to spot. Problem is, no one expects a freaking explosive tripwire mine rigged to an old lady's barn. Likewise, no one expects Emma to go full law-abiding citizen, with a pistol rigged to explode the second he squeezes the trigger on her face. Shame. He had a cool one-liner, "I'll give you your pistol back," starting with the bullets. While Tom's busy clutching his starfished hand, Emma knocks her chair over, which somehow helps her magically untie herself. Ethan goes full feral zombie mode at the sight of Tom's ground beef, consuming him for dinner. Later that night, Emma holds Ethan's hair while he pukes chunks of Tom back up into a bowl. Since Ethan's cast is now stained with blood, which will ruin the immersion of their delusion, Emma recasts it, Problem is, this time she's run out of red markers. The next morning, while they're out hunting together, Ethan suddenly has a flashback and realizes the marker color discrepancy. He aims his revolver at her, demanding an explanation. Wait, why did she give a perpetually confused amnesiac man a pistol? He could have had a moment and just capped her. Emma finally lays it all out for him, probably for the 100th time. To Ethan's horror, she explains everything. What their lives have become, what he's become, and what it takes to keep him alive. The truth hits hard. Devastated, Ethan walks away in silence and ends it all, only to get right back up, because the fungus won't let him die. Exhausted and lonely, Emma finally gives up and decides to let Ethan infect her, if you know what I mean. Together, they walk off into the forest, hand in hand, to be plant people forever. Ultimately, Ethan and Emma's situation was hopeless. Sooner or later, they were destined to become bush Wookiees. Sooner, if Kai had properly checked for bites, or if Tom, his wife Franny, and the rest of their crew had stuck together and eliminated the obvious threat with their own weapons when they had the chance. For this reason, I think the plant zombies in Die Alone were beaten. Moral of the story: shoot first and ask questions later.